Hello, dear friends. Economic issues are very complicated, but I have tried to simplify them. The importance is that the economy is the thermometer of a global change. Opening piece. Banking transformation. The storm is upon us. Lack of liquidity is not allowed. Banks and businesses are worried. Banks forced to hold more capital. Will have to comply with Basel III and IV. The solvency of banks is in question. China is already using ISO 20022. It is a headache for banks. Leaves less room for banks to act. The aim is to promote global convergence. BRICS adopted Chinese Cyps system. Putin's most powerful weapon is oil. The White Knights have had enough. White hats will not help bankers. The new standard is to start in November 2022. But Basel III's entry into force delayed to 2023. The formation of a multipolar world would be underway. Central banks would be more aggressive after summer. Basel IV would make credit more expensive for companies. Forces banks to hold $10 billion in gold and assets. Westerners evacuate Taiwan as China risks invasion. 5 planets about to align in the sky in a rare conjunction. Let's start. At some point, all banks in the world will have to comply with Basel III and IV standards. All currencies in the world should be backed by gold and assets, and all nations will have to be in the quantum financial system. The extreme volatility, uncertainty, and high complexity of last year's crisis has generated a period of reflection in the international banking industry. The way the globalists gained control of trade is that they have been playing with artificial intelligence for a couple of decades to take control of industry, media, and the industrial complex. It is a very well organized control using artificial intelligence, which is beyond the capacity of human brain. After the summer, we should see more aggressive central banks. Manufacturing growth in the Eurozone slowed last month as factories struggled to cope with supply shortages, high prices and falling demand, according to a survey that suggests consumers are redirecting their spending towards tourism and leisure. Reset news. First, White Hats are fed up with the slow pace of arrests according to multiple sources. Game over. Second, the formation of a multipolar world is underway, and they are trying to prevent this natural process, but it is not working according to such a fall. Third, the roots of Western civilization lie in the religion of Israel, the culture of Greece, and the law of Rome, and the resulting synthesis has flourished and decayed in 1,000 ways during the 2 millennia since Christ. Fourth, it is known that at the Davos Forum, Botswana read out a statement on behalf of its 47 African members, saying that collectively they would withhold their support for the reforms which were on great consent to African members. 5. Many other countries also said they had reservations about the changes and wouldn't support them either. These include Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, and Malaysia. Brazil said it would leave the organization altogether. In the end, the forum was forced to back down. Conjunction. 5 planets are about to line up in the sky in rare conjunction. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn will be visible throughout the month of June, just before sunrise. Although the conjunction will be visible throughout the month, in the early morning hours of 3 and 4 June, the separation between Mercury and Saturn will be the smallest. Another date to keep in mind is 24 June. Mercury will be easier to see, making the parade of 5 planets much more accessible. The first conjunction will begin on 18 June, when Saturn will position itself north of the Moon. The show will be joined by the gas giant Jupiter, which will reach a position north of the Moon during the night of 21st June. Mars will also be conjunct the Moon on 22nd June. Mercury will also join the parade on the same day. Venus will cross very close to the Moon on 26th June. Financial consents. The future banking regulation of capital shows consent among businesses. Basel, the framework that governs how much solvency institutions must accumulate according to the risks they take on, will tighten the surcharges, especially the lower the credit quality of the customer. Basel IV makes credit more expensive for businesses, as the new rules force banks to hold more capital, to the extent that business leaders have asked the European Union to ease the law so that banks do not raise their prices. If a bank complies with Basel IV, it means that it will have more than $10 billion in gold and assets in its reserves. Banks are very worried. While banks are still struggling to implement the post-crisis capital rules known as Basel III and IV, are already cooking. Banking lobby groups are already pushing for the Basel Committee to conduct a third quantitative analysis of the impact of the changes. The management of the Basel Committee of Banking Supervision of the Bank for International Settlements, known as the Bank of Central Banks, has agreed to postpone until 2023 the entry into force of the regulatory requirements of the Basel III framework, which aims to strengthen banks' capital buffers. The aim is to provide banks with more resources to support the economy in the face of the economic recession. One of the problems detected by Basel III was the disparity of banks' internal models for measuring their risks. Definition. The Basel III Accords refer to a set of proposals, in plural, for reforming banking regulation, published as of 16 December 2010. Basel III is part of a series of initiatives promoted by the Financial Stability Board on the G20 to strengthen their financial system in the aftermath of the subprime crisis due to excessive growth of securities of banks' balance sheets, as many institutions didn't have sufficient reserves to cope with the liquidity crisis. The Basel IV rules are changes to bank capital requirements that were agreed in 2017 and are due to be implemented in January 2023. They modify the international banking standards known as the Basel Accords. Regulators argue that these changes complete the Basel III reforms agreed in principle in 2010-2011. Critics of the reform, particularly those in the banking sector, argue that Basel IV requires a significant increase in capital and should be treated as a separate round of reforms. These reforms will take effect from January 2023, with the exception of the protection floor, which will be phased in gradually and come into full effect on 1st January 2027. New standard. ISO 20022 is a standard for electronic data interchange between financial institutions. It describes a metadata repository containing descriptions of messages and business processes, and a maintenance process for the repository content. The standard covers financial information transferred between financial institutions, including payment transactions, securities trading and settlement information, credit and debit card transactions, and other financial information. The repository contains a large amount of financial services metadata that has been shared and standardized across the industry. ISO 20022 is a standard used for the exchange of data between banks and companies worldwide. It was developed in 2004 at the initiative of the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, in Europe. The Single Euro Payment Area is based on ISO 20022. Banks in North America and Asia have been interested in the subject for several years. Only Latin America, Africa, and Russia have lagged behind in the implementation of ISO 20022. The objective of this ISO standard is to promote the global convergence of all messages so that all financial services with their own payment systems can communicate with each other. ISO is the world's largest international standardization organization. It consists of a network of 162 national institutes where international standards are developed in various fields. ISO 20022 can be used for payments and collections, but also for exchanges of information such as bank card or account statements, securities trading, and direct debit changes, investment and financing management, foreign trade, treasury, and finally for administrative messages such as power of attorney management and account opening and closing. Not new. ISO 20022 by Logan B. This ISO is not new. It was adopted worldwide in 2004. China had already been using it since 2003. For most industry standards, when a new standard is adopted, companies have two options. Either they remodel their factories and upgrade their software, or they cease operations. The banking industry saw two major problems with adopting the standard. It was going to be costly and would cause them to lose a fortune from what they were making by charging fees to all the banks that the old standard sent money to before the money finally got to where it was going. They should also lose out by not being able to tap into this money that was not theirs for weeks as it crawled through the system. This new rule stopped all that by enacting a direct branch-to-branch transfer in a matter of minutes. Nothing changed until 2008, when the BRICS nations adopted the Chinese Cyps system, and now 108 countries are using it. The new standard will not begin to be adopted in the West until November 2022, and will not have to be mandatory until November 2025. Given that there are many companies that could have their ISO platforms up and running within days, it is known that they will wait until the last possible minute. There are companies offering gold-backed XRP coins or blockchain, but many of them are in court battles, and some are already closed. I think it is only a matter of time before they are shut down, so be careful about putting your money into them. The white hats have said flatly that they will not help these bankers get rich, and until recently, the Galactics have avoided us and were unwilling to get involved, but now the situation has changed. The Cyps nations could have implemented currency revaluation many years ago for their own people, but they decided it wouldn't be fair to do so, and they have not done so, since this is all based on fairness and equality for all. Our hope now is that the Galactics will realize how important the financial restat is for humankind, and that they will help those in the Western countries who want this done. And that is exactly what is happening now, and I hope it will be done quickly. Economy. Excuse me. First, Wall Street closes in the red and the Dow Jones is down 4.54%. Second, don't get too excited about the recent stock market rally. Some experts say it could be a trap and that the bear market will continue to break havoc. Third, JP Morgan CEO warns of a coming economic hurricane. Fourth, gold gets its best day in 2 weeks and its highest close in a month. 5. Bank of Canada raises rates by a half point to control inflation. 6. Restaurants raise menu prices due to higher food and labor costs. 7. China loosens Shanghai restrictions as economic woes mount. Oil. First, oil rises as stockpiles fall. Second, Brent crude oil falls by 5.29% to $116.34. Third, crude ends higher as OPEC increases productions. Fourth, OPEC to pump 50% more oil in summer with Russia and Saudi Arabia as main producers. 5. The OPEC oil deal is too little too late to reduce prices. 6. The Saudis wink with an increase in oil production. 7. Saudi Arabia is ready to pump more oil if Russian production collapses under the ban. 8. Putin's most powerful military weapon is oil. USA. First, the Federal Reserve notes that growth is little or modest. Second, Treasury Secretary admits she was wrong on inflation. Third, US seeks to expedite asylum cases on border amid doubts and threats. Fourth, 70% of public schools report an increase in students seeking mental health help. Europe. First, European Union steps on sanctions breaks after Russian oil veto. Second, Russia will cut gas supplies to companies in Germany and Denmark after doing the same to the Netherlands. Third, Eurozone inflation is breaking record after record. Fourth, Croatia is set to join the euro in 2023. 5. Brussels approves Poland's recovery plan. 6. Italy's unemployment rate fell to 8.4% in April. 7. Hungary saved Patriarch Kirill from being sanctioned by the European Union. 8. Turkey downgrades diplomatic relations with Greece as tensions rise. Spain. First, European Union agrees to harness Iberian potential to secure energy supply. Second, Spain expects more gas and oil supplies from Nigeria. Third, antioxidant compounds discovered in microorganisms in plural in Algerian salt lakes. Fourth, Spain places 4.76 billion in its first bid in June, but at higher interest rates. 5. Spain consolidates the return of foreign tourism with more than 6 million visitors in April. 6. Defense dismisses the chief captain of the unit that received a blessing in the Valley of the Fallen, Valle de los Caídos. 7. The US expects a commitment from Spain to receive refugees from America according to Axios. But we have a lot of refugees from Africa. 8. The 6 winning entries in the King of Spain Journalism Awards come from Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, Venezuela, and Spain. Americas. First, Cuba will receive a rainstorm at the 2022 cyclone season opens. Second, Honduras extends yellow and green alerts in 10 departments due to rainfall. Third, Bukele admits that El Salvador is on the verge of winning the war against gangs. Fourth, the Salvadoran government is asked to control journalism, denounces the union. 5. Maduro affirms that the sanctions against Russia, in quotes, are economic suicide for the world. 6. The US sanctions a police chief in Mexico who is accused of receiving bribes. 7. Peru imposes a 6 fine on Repsol for the oil spill in the Ventanilla Sea in January. 8. Small producers protest with a verdurazo in front of the Argentinian Congress. 9. Argentina moves forward with the tariff hike committed to with the IMF. 10. Argentina's tax collection rises almost 80% year-on-year in May. 11. Iberdrola starts trial operation of its first solar farm in Brazil. 12. The Brazilian Amazon recorded the highest number of fires in 18 years in May. 30. The coastal city of Maricá, Brazil, opts for basic income. Rumors of war. First, Germany promises Ukraine an anti-aircraft defense system and a state-of-the-art radar. Second, Zelensky acknowledges that 1/5 of Ukraine's territory is under Russian domination. Third, India refused to join a military alliance against China and Russia, say sources close to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. 4. Western civilians have been called to evacuate Taiwan because of the growing possibility of an invasion from China. 5. Leaked audio from a top-secret meeting confirms that the Chinese military may soon launch an invasion of Taiwan. 6. China clamps down on dissidents as the anniversary of the Tiananmen massacre approaches. 7. Danger of war with Iran. Russia. First, Russia says new European sanctions are self-defeating. Second, Russia warns that the European veto on its oil will affect the whole world. Third, the ruble became the world's best performing currency despite sanctions. Fourth, Russia warns that giving arms to Ukraine fuels the risk of a clash. 5. Russia warns that force-armed missiles could wipe out the entire US. 6. Lavrov says Kiev seeks to implicate the West in military actions. 7. Russia warns of more confrontation as arms shipments to Ukraine increase. 8. United Nations aid chief must go to discuss Ukraine's grain exports. 9. Russia tells United Nations, in quotes, "We are ready to provide safe passage for Ukrainian ships with wheat, but first Kiev must clear its ports from mines." It refers to mines, to ship mines. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.